With severe weather outbreaks and flooding occurring in the past few days, could we expect to see more of that as we head towards the end of this week? And will a drastic heat wave set in as well? And I'm also tracking Tropical Storm Brett as it starts to form in the Atlantic Ocean and will turn to a hurricane as it heads towards the homeland. I'll be breaking that all down coming up in this video. Howdy y'all, welcome back and happy hump day. It looks like we do have a couple disturbances out here in the Pacific and in the Atlantic, but our main focus is over here in the Atlantic, as we do have a couple tropical storms to be dealing with. We have Tropical Storm Brett and another one out there called Invest 93L. They call it AL93, but it's basically Invest 93L. There's an 80% chance of that forming as well, but we're going to focus on Tropical Storm Brett first. And as you see, we got Tropical Storm Brett out here forming in the Atlantic, and it looks like that's going to turn towards the west before churning towards the north. It's going to be hitting the Caribbean islands out there before turning towards the northeast and heading back out into the Atlantic. Now, the waters are pretty warm out there, so this tropical storm could possibly turn into a hurricane. But with the wind shear due to the trough that's going to be forming out in the eastern part of the country, I think it'll die off and pretty much do that little recurve pattern and head out to the Atlantic. As far as Invest 93L goes, I'm thinking this one's going to be the one that's going to hit the homeland, as I'm thinking it's going to turn into a little bit of a tropical storm. I don't think it's going to be as strong as Tropical Storm Brett, but I'm thinking due to it cooling off the waters out here, I'm thinking it will actually hit Florida by right around June 30th. Now this goes all the way out to the 26th. I'm thinking it'll take 3 more days to get to Florida. And as we can see on the GFS model here, if you focus over here on this low pressure system, this is Tropical Storm Brett that will most likely turn into a hurricane. Now this GFS is saying it's going to basically head west and just slam towards Mexico, but I'm thinking it's going to turn into the Atlantic due to the major trough that's going to be setting in. Then as we head towards the 30th, you can see this is Invest 93L right here, and it's looking like this will actually turn out into the Atlantic as well. So it looks like I was wrong about that, but anything can and will change. It all depends on the sea surface temperatures and the trough and ridging patterns, because we all know hurricanes do not like wind shear at all. And as far as the tropical development chance out here in the Pacific, there's only 40% chance out here within the next 7 days. It's a medium chance, but a chance nonetheless. And I'm going to show you the wording here. It looks like this could possibly turn into a little bit of a tropical depression the next 7 days. So let's go ahead and take a look at what kind of severe weather we could be dealing with as we head towards the weekend. If we look at the severe weather for the next 3 days, it looks like we do have a slight risk for severe weather for today, which spans from Wyoming all the way down into Texas. Now all hazards are possible today with a pretty significant tornado chance, which is a 5% chance in Wyoming and Colorado here in the red, and a 2% in the green. As far as the damaging wind threat goes, there's a pretty significant chance for damaging winds, as there is a 15% hatched area spanning from Oklahoma all the way down into central Texas, and just a regular 15% up here in Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, and a little bit of Kansas. And the red, you are under the 5% chance today for damaging winds. As far as large hail threat goes, there's a pretty significant chance for large hail today as well, as there is a 15% hatch area over here in Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado, and Oklahoma and Texas. And just a regular 15% here in the yellow and a 5% surrounding that. As we head off into Thursday, there's another slight risk for severe weather over here in southeastern Wyoming and northern Colorado, with a marginal risk surrounding that here in the dark green. There is no tornado threat, but there is a damaging wind and a large hail threat, which is a 15% in Colorado and Wyoming. And then as we head off into Friday, there's another chance for severe weather, a slight risk, which spans from eastern Wyoming all the way down into Kansas. Now, we don't know the main hazards just yet, but stay tuned. I will most likely have a video out on Friday. And then as we head off into Saturday, there's also a chance for severe weather, which is a 15% area, which spans from eastern Kansas all the way down into Missouri here in the yellow. So let's go and take a look at the time frames of when you could expect the worst and severe weather. Alright, let's take a look at today's triple R model. Keep in mind that date and time's up here if you want to keep track. This is an Eastern time, by the way, so keep that in mind. As it pushes forward, looks like some heavy rain showers over here in eastern Kansas and eastern Nebraska, and especially over here in the Smoky Mountains today, as well as there is a slight risk for excessive rainfall. So if you live in the low-lying area, please be aware of that. As we push this forward, looks like by right around 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock is when we're going to be dealing with some severe weather. When some severe weather could be getting started, and looks like we could be dealing with some pretty significant hail and wind down here in Oklahoma and Texas. And our tornado threat's going to be getting ramped up, as there is a 5% chance for tornadoes up here in Wyoming, Nebraska, and parts of Colorado. And as we look at the significant tornadic parameters, we can see that we're going to be dealing with some pretty favorable tornadic conditions out here, especially by the time we head towards 8 o'clock. And then it starts to die down by right around 1 o'clock. And according to the sounding, this is taking over northwestern Nebraska. We have some low 70 degree temperatures with low 60 degree dew points. Not much in the way of instability and moisture, but we do have some high Cape values that at the surface right around 3,300 joules per kilogram. As far as the wind shear goes and the kinematics, we have 3.6 on the elevated helicity index and a 173 as far as the storm relative helicity. So not much in the way of wind shear, but we do have a lot of Cape out there. Not much in the way of a capping inversion on hardly no dry slot. I don't think it's going to be that big of a tornado day, but still you should keep your guard up and know where to go when that tornado warning does go off. As we push this further into the future, it looks like severe weather is going to start to die down as we head towards the early morning hours of Thursday. And it's going to be mainly a large hail and damaging wind threat down here in parts of Oklahoma and Texas. So if you have anything loose out there you don't want blown around or anything you don't want damaged due to hail, just make sure you put it up or tie it down. We could be dealing with upwards of 32 knot winds out there. It's right around 30 some mile an hour. But still, make sure you tie down anything you don't want blown around, and make sure you put the cars in the garage if you don't want them damaged from hail. And to look at the timing for Thursday, we're going to lower resolution down to the NAM 3 kilometer model. Now keep in mind there is no tornado threat tomorrow, but still there is a pretty significant wind and hail threat. And it looks like we could be dealing with the same situation as today. As far as timing goes, looks like this weather could be getting ramped up by right around 7, 8 o'clock, as we could be dealing with upwards of 23 knot winds, especially over here by Denver. Could be dealing with higher wind gusts, especially up in the higher elevations. And it looks like severe weather could start to die off as we head toward the overnight hours of Thursday, and that leads us into Friday. Now we don't know the main hazards of Friday just yet, but let's take a look at the NAM 12 kilometer model. Looks like by right around 8 o'clock to right around midnight is when we could expect the worst from the severe weather within the slight risk zones. Now keep in mind we do not know what the hazards will be just yet, but with the NAM 12 kilometer model we can take a look at the tornadic parameters, airspace Cape, and the lightning flash density rate to check out what we could expect. Now looking at the significant tornadic parameters, it's like we could be dealing with some tornadic conditions out there. Not very sufficient tornadic conditions except over here, but still, even if the tornadic parameters are off the charts, I don't mean a tornado can happen right there. It just means that the conditions are pretty favorable for it. That's why they issued the slight risk down here. It's because the thunderstorms are going to start to develop by right around this time. There won't be any over here. But as we look at the Cape values, this is going to be basically thunderstorm fuel, as tornadic parameters are basically tornado fuel. As you can see, we're going to be dealing with upwards of right around 3,000 joules per kilogram. Looks like a powder keg environment is going to be in store on Friday. As we look at the lightning flash density rate for Friday, it looks like we could be dealing with some severe weather from right around 4 o'clock through right around 9, 10 o'clock within the slight risk area. And as we take a look at the 15% area for Saturday, it's going to be right around the same area. Looks like we could possibly be dealing with some severe weather from right around 2 o'clock through right around 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Now, keep in mind this is pretty far out, and I will have a video out later this week sometime. So if you'd like to see more forecast videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like button down below. Helps me out more than you know. And according to the NAM 12 kilometer model, for our surface-based Cape goes for Saturday, by 2 o'clock, looks like we could be dealing with upwards of almost 3,300 joules per kilogram. So it looks like Saturday is going to be a pretty significant day for severe weather, as we do not know the main hazards for that just yet. And to look at the severe weather threats further for Saturday, this gives us a basic understanding of what kind of ingredients we could be dealing with. Looks like we could be dealing with low 80 degree temperatures with some low 70 degree dew points, so lots of instability and moisture to be dealing with. Not much of a capping inversion to suppress supercell development, as we're going to be dealing with some 3,000 joules per kilogram as far as the Cape value goes, and a 3.0 as far as the elevated helicity index goes. Now there's a lot of curvature over here in the photograph, and it looks like there's a dry slot, so make sure you don't get those Lambos out, because you don't want to be that guy that gets the Lambo out and he runs into a thunderstorm and regrets it, because he doesn't watch the Williams Weather YouTube channel. Yeah, it looks like a pretty sufficient day as far as severe weather for Saturday. It looks like some tornadoes could be in store, but we don't know the rain risks for Saturday just yet, but stay tuned. And whatever risks you're under for the next 3 days, just make sure you're weather aware. Know where to go when that severe weather warning does go off. If you're under a tornado warning, make sure you seek shelter in a basement, storm shelter, So make sure you keep as well between you and the outside world as possible. And there's also a slight risk for excessive rainfall as well within the next 3 days, so make sure you're aware of that. Turn around and do not drown. So let's go and take a look at what we could expect as we head towards the end of June. And to determine what we could expect as we head towards the end of June, we're going to take a look at what we call the 500 millibar height anomalies. The blues represent the bad weather, reds represent the good weather, troughs and ridges. And it looks like this pattern is going to persist for quite some time. And that's also going to suppress some hurricane development down in the Atlantic, as well as Tropical Storm Brett could possibly head towards Mexico, or looks like it could head towards the Atlantic, but it looks like it's going to head this way according to the GFS model. And it looks like by the 27th, looks like we're going to come into a major troughing pattern out east. It looks like a soggy pattern is going to be in store. And this is when that Invest 93L is supposed to be coming up, and it looks like it's going to possibly turn into the Atlantic before a major ridging pattern starts to set in by the 30th. This ridging pattern is going to overtake much of the country by that time as well. Now let's keep in mind this is overturned some hours out. Anything can and will change by then. And if this turns into more of a ridging pattern, we could be dealing with a hurricane that affects the mainland, regardless of whether it's Tropical Storm Brett or the Invest 93L. So let's go and take a look at the simulated radar. We know we got the severe weather that's going to be happening for the next 4 days, and we're dealing with some soggy conditions, as there is slight risk for excessive rainfall, for flooding. After that, looks like we could be dealing with even more flooding concerns out east. Looks like we could be dealing with some severe weather down here in west central Tennessee by the 26th, and some more soggy conditions by the 27th. It looks like by the 30th, we could be dealing with some severe weather over here by Nebraska. And lastly, let's take a look at the temperature anomalies. As we know, we've been pretty cool out east and pretty cool out west, with the middle part of the country being fun in the sun and dealing with those hot temperatures. It looks like the pattern is going to continue for quite some time before the 25th, as we're going to be dealing with some above average temperatures out east and some below average temperatures out west. And we're going to be coming back into this below average pattern out east before much of the country is going to be above average. And according to the Climate Prediction Center, it looks like much of the middle part of the country is going to be above average as far as temperatures go. Looks like out west and out east, looks like you're all going to be below average, and it looks like up here in the northwest part of the country and the northeast part of the country, you're going to be above average as well. As far as the 8 to 14 day outlook goes, looks like most of the country is going to be above average as that little troughing pattern starts to set in. It looks like over here in the Ohio Valley, over here in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia, you're all going to be below average. As far as precipitation goes, looks like much of the southern part of the country over here from Arizona on over into Mississippi, looks like y'all gonna be below average. But the rest of the country here in the green, y'all gonna be above average. As far as 8 to 14 day outlook goes, looks like the northern part of the country is gonna be above average, while states from California on over into Mississippi, y'all are gonna remain below average. So it looks like an active weather pattern is gonna be setting in as we head towards the end of June, with even more severe weather and flooding expected for the next 3 to 4 days. So whatever risk you are under for the next 3 to 4 days, just please remain weather aware. Know where to go when the severe warning goes off, and never fear, as shelter is near. And it looks like a couple tropical storms start to form out there in the Atlantic. None of those I don't think are going to affect the mainland any, as Tropical Storm Brett looks like it's going to start to head west into Mexico. And it looks like Invest 93L is going to just churn out there into the Atlantic. And it looks like out in the Pacific, it looks like that tropical storm is going to start to develop within the next 7 days. There's a 40% chance for it. Pretty low chance, but still a chance nonetheless. And it looks like a heat wave is going to be setting in as well. So if you like the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And until next time, never stop forecasting.